Are you pondering what I'm pondering?
I think so, Brain. But how can they do an Animaniacs reboot without most of the original cast? It's been kind of strange. I know it's the original voice actors, but it's kind of strange. Like, Dot just sounds so grown up.
Yeah,
And I mean, really hear everyone talking or singing in both of the theme songs. It's just very strange to me.
because it sounds like so different, but it's not.
I thought it was different voice actors.
No, it's the same. It's just like you can tell that there's been 22 years, that this is like 22 years later. You can actually hear almost each individual voice during both theme songs, which I actually really appreciate about um the reboot. I really like the reboot. I think the animation is crisp. It still kind of has that same like Animaniacs feel.
I think it has some of the original Animaniac feel, but it is a good. It's funny.
I think as a reboot because it's not, and I talked about this in my other podcast, but it's not like they were trying to rebrand themselves as like the updated Animaniacs. This is, they
But
talk.
it feels like the updated Animaniacs. One of the things I liked about the original Animaniacs is that the world around them was normal, but they weren't. They were the crazy. They were the
Zany.
and in yeah, they were zany. They had a therapist to try to get them not to be zany. People were afraid of them and their zany antics. Like I said, there's the original cast just kind of is absent. So they've got one of the characters, Nora, who is the new CEO, and she's this, that, the other thing, and it plays into, they're changing to be with the times. And I just think she's annoying. Like I said, I was watching a clip, and there's a scene where they're trying to find Wacko's missing donuts, and she she's laughing, and you really think I would risk not being part of the singularity by eating refined sugar? And the laugh is really weird. It doesn't sound like a creepy, crazy, maniacal laugh. It sounds like you just made like an off-color joke to your mother and she just got it. But she's laughing, and the Animaniacs get scared, and so they cut a hole in the window and they jump out. But it's like they're the Animaniacs,
That's
in
supposed to
the
be their
original
job.
series.
Well, like I was saying earlier, I think what I like the most about, not what I like the most about the reboot, 2020 has been a very strange year. Times have been very strange. Um, Not that they haven't not been strange, but I like they, how do I want to put this? It's not like okay, these are the Animaniacs, but they're normal now, and this is them navigating life as normal beings. Like I'm glad they didn't go like the We Bare Bears route, where you had odd people just trying to be normal and like an everyday sense. I'm glad that there's still like zaniness in the show. It still feels
See,
like
I was
Animaniacs, but instead of the Animaniacs being the ones that are doing the zany, it's everything around them. Hearing Yakko
and
Warner say like, "Can you guys keep it down? I'm trying pretending to watch the news like I'm an adult," and it's like, what the hell? Like,
yeah, well, and again, it feels like the Animaniacs have since grown up. Like the original felt like they were kids. This one feels like they've since grown up and they've kind of outgrown some of their zany tendencies. But
well then
I
let
almost would have preferred if it was here they are, they have outgrown their zany tendencies and they're trying to be normal in an abnormal world. Like they're trying to be normal in 2020, and it's like the opportunity just keeps presenting itself for them to go batshit. But you have, and I would have liked that. I would have loved that. But again, you have like a blonde guy, and they are just out zanying him at every turn, and it's funny. But then again, you've got that scene with like Nora, where she's
she's
not
the
even
zany one, and
really.
good night
What?
everybody. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, like and not even that she's acting zany or crazy, because we've seen people act zanier and crazier. And she laughs, and again, her laugh just kind of annoys me. But she laughs and about, whatever, and the Warner Brothers just get scared and bolt. But it's like, these are the
And
Warner
the Warner
Brothers
sister. And the Warner sister.
and the Warner sister. But remember in the Nickel Wise episode where it's a scary clown and they just keep out-zanying him because they're the Warners. They're really not scared of him.
Until they don't.
That, for me, that worked. But then you get characters like Nora. It's like, why is she the crazier one? Why is she the one they're afraid of? There's no mention, like, if in episode 1 she makes a note that if they go zany or if they do something crazy that now, oh, we've got rules and we'll fire you and we'll cancel your show if you do this. So they're trying to behave normally around her, and that's why they'd rather leave. That makes sense.
I like that in the first episode they had the Warners like genuinely confused that they're back after 22 years and things are so different. And I think that worked. But I think it would have worked better for like the first episode and then have them back to their normal selves with a modern flair by the second episode, which they didn't do. The other thing I was going to bring up, getting back, Yakko was our favorite character in the original run. So seeing him back was exciting. However, and I'm a big sucker, I always say, for like the family theme and this, that, and the other. But to have like Dot and Wacko going up to Yakko and going like, oh, like he was the father figure, it just felt weird. Like I know he's supposed to be 14, so to see a 14-year-old playing the role of the responsible parent instead of like the kind of like fun-loving whatever older brother that he was in the original just kind of like drove home the fact that this is now 22 years later and we're all adults.
And I think that was my problem, is that it was a reboot that's trying to follow the path of the original without being the original, but then it's like,
they addressed that too in the first episode.
What?
They addressed that too in the first episode.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it feels like it's trying to mimic the tone of the original, but the original was from the 90s, so it's like you can't always do that.
Well,
so they try to make it modern.
What I appreciate about that, and again, I talk about that in my other podcast, I appreciate that they at least acknowledge the fact that they are a reboot and that it will be different and that, you know what I mean, that all gets established, which a lot of reboots don't do. Even the not bringing back the other cartoons with it gets addressed. Now, I will say this. Do I miss certain like cartoons from the original Animaniacs? Yes. Do I like that it's a little bit less of a mixed bag? Definitely. In the original Animaniacs, you would get like a random cartoon, and I'm sure there's like a method to it that I'm just missing, and I should probably stop watching this with alcohol, but you had like Slappy and Skippy, you had Mindy and Buttons, you always had like the protagonist and their sidekick getting up to something, but it all had, the characters themselves were unique, the episodes themselves just felt very like they all coexisted in one universe. So I miss them on their own. I don't necessarily miss them in an episode of Animaniacs. They did bring back Pinky and the Brain, hence our Pinky and the Brain reference earlier, and I like what they're doing with it. I don't know.
Well, and it's funny without being.
But it also feels weird, like not weird, not disjointed. No, disjointed was the word I was looking for. Because you have like Animaniacs episode part 1, and normally in the original you would have like Pinky and the Brain, some other fun cartoon, and then Animaniacs would wrap it back up. In this reboot, you pretty much just have Animaniacs episode, super long episode of Pinky and the Brain, Animaniacs episode. Like it
Yeah, and
feels like it could be its own thing. They do, wait, I do have to give them this. Toward the end, they started throwing in like new versions of, or not new versions of cartoons, but like new cartoons. I don't remember any of their names. They were that forgettable. But that makes it sound really mean. I mean, I love the reboot. I'm not trying to be mean by any sense of the word, but seeing a different cartoon instead of Pinky and the Brain at this point now just feels weird.
well, and it was one of those, and I know they addressed it in an episode where they're pulling things out of a hat, and they're like, wait a minute, I remember having more characters to bounce off of. What happened to them? And then they're, Chicken Boo kidnapped all of them, and you get to see them all again, blah, blah, blah. Or like in the episode where it's like, oh, you gotta go vote for your rights, and they're pulling out like the old Hanna-Barbera characters and
Did
everyone
it,
else, and
hold on, did it fuck you up seeing Lunatics Unleashed?
it fucked me up seeing Lunatics Unleashed. I laughed my ass off.
Whatever the heck these guys were, and it was like such a weird, like,
I used to I loved Lunatics Unleashed. So actually seeing it again and having it be like, oh yeah, this was a show we did.
I will give them that. They, for a reboot, and I think I compared it to, like Ben 10, that just kept adding on, adding on. Omniverse was supposed to add on too, but the animation kept changing. At least with this reboot, they acknowledge they're the reboot. They are different, but they are the same. They covered everything, where the characters went, what
In the opening where
happened.
it's like, wait a minute, these don't look the same, and it's like, yeah, it's because I reanimated them. And it's like they acknowledge that it looks different. They call back to the old stuff. I'm rewatching, as we're talking, I'm rewatching the first episode, and this bothers me. Like they drop off the what you call it, the Warners. They drop off the Warners at the CEO's office, and it's the scene where Yakko eats the tablet, and you've got Nora who's freaked out, and you've got her like looking both ways. You got her trying to kick them out of the office. You got her like, and remember in the original how Yakko eats the CEO's paperweight, and okay, you want it back, you're gonna have to wait a while. Um, that, and it was cute, but that,
It was cute,
what's
she
going
says.
on like right here versus like her laughing, freaking out the Warners. That scene will always bother me. Her laughing, it freaks out the Warners, they run off. I can't get a feel for this character.
I guess that too, like, the Warners are at least recognizable. We expect this stuff, but as a reboot introducing new characters, you have to work really hard for us to like them. Um,
Yeah, and it's,
for it being season one, I'm excited to see where they go with it. I think for a reboot, and if anything, an
I'm
Animaniacs reboot,
impressed still.
I'm beyond impressed with what they're doing. This could go either way.